Show. This is Travis Bashaw, and I am in the More Than More podcast studio here in Ankeny with Kristin and Kurt Polley. So excited to have them here with me for a bit here to talk about who they are and how they're a part of C21. So welcome, you guys. Let these guys know where you're from and how long you've been in real estate.
All right. So we're Kristin and Kurt Polley. We're from Marshalltown, just a few miles away from Ankeny.
Born and raised, right?
Born and raised. Yep. We've both been in the big city for 45 years. And we have, I've been in real estate for, I'm going to be starting 25 years. And Kurt got in 2013.
Yeah. So if you hadn't said 45 years, people would assume you got licensed at like 10 years old.
Yeah,
so you kind of gave
right.
it away there.
Yep.
So good. Okay. So you said 2014 for Kurt?
2013.
All right. Good. So we're past the 10-year mark. So statistically, you are in this for the long haul now. So. Kristen, I'll start with you, but I also want to kind of bring Kurt into this as well. So what got you into real estate? What was before real estate? What brought you into this? And how did you build the career and business that you have now?
So way back when I was just a college student, getting a degree in early childhood, was planning to be a teacher, kind of fell along in my parents' footsteps, and was working a lot of hours, working retail, really enjoyed selling things. Especially, I really loved selling shoes, worked in a sporting goods store and loved it. And
what was it about it? What about, because most of the time people are like, you know what, it's not the sales, it's the people. But you're like, ooh, I like the sales and the people.
No,
what
I liked the challenge of finding somebody the right running shoe, or the shoe that really fit their foot perfect based on the type of foot they had, or things like that. So I just really enjoyed retail. I liked setting up the store. I liked everything about retail. I liked the hours, crazy enough as it was. I really liked retail. And I had no intention of doing anything else other than being a teacher. Mm-hmm. And then we were young and had the opportunity to buy our first house right before we got married. And we had a really good experience with an agent. We enjoyed the process. And after that happened, the broker of the company that I ultimately worked for, she actually just reached out to me and said, I'm looking to hire a young agent, somebody super young, new. We need the next generation of agents to come in. Would you consider going into real estate? And I was like...
And this is the brokerage that represented you as buyers?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was wondering if there was a connection there. So almost a referral probably from your agent that said, hey, Kristen was great to work with here. Maybe we should talk.
Yeah. And so she asked me what I thought, and I was like, well, I think I'll just put college on hold. And so with good support from parents and from Kurt, I decided to get my real estate license. And then I did work in a preschool part-time while I started working in real estate, but that was only for about 2 years, maybe.
I would say 4.
Maybe 4 years
until
we had our first child.
Got it.
And then I was working full-time real estate and working full-time as a preschool teacher. So crazy hours. And that's how I got in.
So we're in 2000. So we've, the 90s were pretty solid for home sales. If we look statistically, early 2000s still pretty good.
Yeah.
But obviously we saw a change towards the 2008, 9, 10. What did that look like for your business? And again, where Kurt's sitting here saying, I'm really glad you got into real estate, but holy cow, what's going on with the housing industry? Because he wasn't in it at that point. What did that look like for you guys? And I'm really curious, Kurt, like what was your thought? Because I came into real estate at the exact same time. I came in 09 during that crisis, and I remember my wife being like, "Oh, is this really what we should be doing when your homes are all plummeting in value and you're selling houses that are $15,000 to $20,000 and you're walking away with a couple $100 after all that work?" Did it affect you in Marshalltown, or do you think that Marshalltown was?
So I think my path was maybe a little bit different because I only worked as a single agent for about 18 months.
Oh, okay.
So I had my own business for 18 months. It was really successful early, quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it came on quick. People trusted me at 20 and it was good. Yeah. But then I had the opportunity to work as a buyer's agent for the lead agent in Marshalltown. She was killing it. She was clearly the number one choice. And I became a buyer's agent. I stayed a buyer's agent until 2010. So I did not list a property ever from 2002 until 2010. I was only a buyer's agent. And so I would say during the crisis, I was busy. We were busy. We were selling. We definitely probably didn't have our biggest years during that time, but it was never bad. Right. It was always good.
Okay. That's a little different than what we've seen in some other markets, which helps because when you can make it through that, things came out on the other side a lot of fun, which is obviously not long after that you were licensed. What why do you mentioned before that people just at 20 years old, people trusted you when it came to selling real estate. What do you think was the reason for that? What gave you the opportunity over agents that have been doing this for a long time?
I just think I had a great work ethic. Genuinely really wanted to help them in their transaction. And it was more relational, I think, at back then. So it was really about like, we were going to hang out for a long time as buyer's agents with them. You know, it wasn't just look at one house and make an offer and get it. It was, they know my car. They like the back seat. They, you know, I know what coffee they want, you know, and that sort of thing. We spent a lot of time together. And so it just became really relational. And, you know, I didn't have a background in any sort of construction or housing and, you know, none of that, but Kurt really had that. And so even though he wasn't licensed or, you know, actually in the business when I got in, he was a construction background. And so he was he was building homes, you know, working for a builder and that sort of thing. So, you know, when I'm like, what the heck is this pipe coming off of this water heater? He'd be like, he could tell me.
Like I said, I went in 2013, got licensed, but I had been in the business since 2000. I mean, we would, at the time we were doing a new development out at the Harvester Golf Course. Even then they'd have multiple houses open. I would just be the body in the house. I couldn't answer any questions, but I would be the person that was there. So, I mean, I feel like, and then obviously I did all the signs and all the stuff that came along with being the husband of a new real estate agent, I guess. So I feel like I've been in it since 2000 as well.
And we hear that from kids when they you know, when they join their parents in real estate, they're like, you know, I'm 20, but I've been in real estate for 15 years because I was pulling signs out and I was listening to mom or dad have conversations with buyers or sellers. So definitely get that. So good. Okay. So we're in 2010. Things have gone well through there. Now we started listing properties then. Is that kind of when the transformation happened? You mentioned.
So, I mean, lots of things have happened, but in 2010 we had our third child. And
well, but I would say back up just a prior. So your business partner that you guys were listing buyer's agent, you were a buyer's agent. She was listing agent. She would go away for 6 months. So then Kristen would manage the listing side and the buy side for those 6 months while they were wintering in Florida.
But still, you know, I was basically just helping her run her business while she was
correct. But that still gave you a good head start of what that would be looking.
Especially that other side with sellers is very different. So it's good.
Being a really good buyer's agent for so many years really prepared me to be a really good listing agent because I knew what those sellers really wanted. I knew how to treat them and things. So we had a third child. I actually took 10 months off from real estate. You might not know that. But,
I didn't know that.
We had a fabulous daycare provider that decided not to do daycare about like the day Avery was born. And so we kind of panicked. I panicked actually and thought maybe God was giving me an indication that I should try to be a stay-at-home mom and I shouldn't do real estate anymore. And that was a wrong choice.
It's actually a great opportunity for you though, because you get to stay home with Avery.
Yeah, I enjoyed
and spend a lot of time at home. So I mean, it was a great 10 months.
It was a great 10 months.
And we were financially positioned to where we could do that.
Be able to.
And we weren't overextended. And we're like, okay, just do that and enjoy it.
I tried it and I missed real estate a lot. And in that time period, I prepared myself to come back and be bold and to tell the agent that I'd worked for many, many years, whom I loved, that I'm going to come back and I'm going to be a listing agent and go out on my own. Yeah. And we talked and prayed about it a lot and we knew that was the right decision. So really what started, I mean, the story of it, whether was the right decision or not is that was pre-Zillow. That was pre-Zillow in Marshalltown. I don't even know if it was pre-Zillow in Iowa, but Zillow was really new. And I was researching. I'm going to come back. I want to be a listing agent, top listing agent. And I have no listings. You know, I have none. And at that time, we're talking 450 listings in Marshalltown. You know, now we're talking 50. So big difference. But so on a whim, I got in contact with Zillow because I found them on the internet and that's what was happening in California. And they sold me the zip code for 50158 for a really nice price. And when my license became active then in the end of 2010, I appeared to be the listing agent of every property for sale in Marshalltown.
Yeah.
All of them.
Gets you some calls.
Yeah, it got me a lot of calls and it got my face everywhere. And then it quickly got me a lot of signs, a lot of listing appointments, and it just went from there.
Wow. Okay.
So
I did not know this.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other business partner then decided to retire.
She decided to retire. And we worked out a great referral program for her so she could transition out and then I could stay in. And then in 2012, we were approached to buy the brokerage.
Yeah. Good.
So that's how it started.
So 12 is, did you take over ownership in 12?
No,
No,
13.
October of 2013, the conversations had started in 12 of, hey, we're looking to exit, and would you guys be interested?
ready for
It just took some time to kind of work through those negotiations as it always does. And
Probably
then,
not ironically then. You became licensed in 13. So was that kind of what led
that was
you
the
to
start
saying, hey,
of
this
it.
is a good time for me to get licensed if we're going to own this thing?
Yeah, well, that was the drive was I was working for an agricultural company, working in energy and working a lot of hours, helping Kristen, knowing, and then we have a rental business as well, knowing we couldn't divide one more time without giving up something.
Yeah.
So we decided, you know what, if we're going to take this leap of faith and we're going to work this hard, why not just go all in? Yeah. So on the same day that we bought the brokerage, the building, I also quit my job.
Right.
Started selling real estate.
I like it.
Became a buyer's agent on the Polley real estate team. And at that time we had one other buyer's agent. So Kristen was doing the listings, and then it would have been two buyer's agents then at that time.
And then how long before you started taking on some listings yourself? Because I want to kind of talk about what your
So
role
I don't
has
do
been.
any listings.
You do. Okay. So
Yeah.
you do, but you do development, you work with builders, you do specs. How did you get into that, and how long have you been doing that? Because I think that's also unique. We have a lot of agents within our company that, you know, we discussed it actually in a meeting that Kristen and I were in this morning, that agents are like, hey, I've never worked a new construction, which I think is actually a lot. If we pulled our agents, I think there's a lot of our agents that are like, yeah, you know what? I've never written a contract on a new construction. I've never even worked with a builder on a spec home. Like, I've done none of this. So how did you get your foot into the door in that, and how long ago? And then what did that look like as you've built that out? Because I know it's become a big part of what you focus on every day.
Yeah, so it wasn't what we did right at the beginning. I would say we got in probably a year, maybe 2 years. Just being a straight buyer's agent. My passion was always new construction or building or flipping houses, just because of my construction background. Mm-hmm. And then just seeing the need, like, hey, Marshalltown isn't growing. We can't recruit the people that we want to the community to work in our place because we don't have the housing that they want. And that was a huge shortfall in our community. We had at the time quite a few infill building lots from past developments that were just kind of sitting around.
Got it.
From the 2008 downturn, we had a couple developments that just kind of sputtered out. So we didn't really have any, at the time, we didn't have any local builders willing to take on the risk and build spec property on basically Marshalltown. They weren't committed that Marshalltown people could afford those houses. At that time, we were targeting probably a $250,000 price point, and at that time, it was like, whoa, that's kind of a high-end price for Marshalltown. Probably our everyday sales price was probably $80,000, $70,000.
It was like $90,000 average.
Yeah. So that was a big, scary jump. So I started to research, other developments in Des Moines, Ankeny, Bondurant, and started basically trying to figure out who we could go talk to and say, hey, there's a great opportunity in Marshalltown. Come take a chance. And so I started meeting with builders.
So you took the steps of going and finding builders versus builders coming to you as real estate agents saying, hey, I think this is a great opportunity.
I started cold calling on builders and setting up appointments, and then basically pitching infill lots saying, hey, you don't have to buy the whole development, but let's buy a couple and let's throw up some specs and just see what happens. And specs sell customs. So I knew if I could find a builder that would take the chance and I could learn their systems, I could then probably sell some customs.
Yeah.
So I would say over the next 2 years, I met with a particular builder and they said, yes, let's try that. And we sold, they put up 2 specs, and then all of a sudden we sold 3 customs off of it. And then pretty soon I had probably 30 builds under our belt between 15 in Marshalltown, and then we had 15 lots in State Center. That builder ended up buying 30 lots, and then we went through them in the next 2.5 years. And
So you think probably between 2015 to 2018, roughly, were 30 to 35 new constructions that you were a part of?
Probably
More?
for 2018, it was more.
Yeah, probably more. So we ended up burning through. So fast forwarding, still picking off all the infill lots because I couldn't get a developer to make a commitment on saying, hey, I'm going to build some new lots when you still have all these stagnant lots, which had tax abatements on them. So we knew if we were going to do a new development, we probably wouldn't be able to offer a tax abatement anymore. So we didn't want to compete against those other lots. So we just kept picking them off. And then once we got those all done, then actually just got lucky with a developer out of Omaha that called during COVID, and him and I hit it off, never even met, but started the relationship probably for a 6-month relationship, just talking regularly. Ended up selling him some farmland, and we ended up doing a development of 45 or 50 lots.
Wow.
And that's the development we have now. I would say we're probably 15, 16 lots left in that development, looking at moving to phase 2. So again, it just comes back to relationships, but then, trying to push, I guess, the market of where we were at, that there was opportunity.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, the fact that you were able to go out and find the right builder that was able to come in and take care of these infill lots. I mean, I think of how many communities have exactly what you just said right now, is a development that took off, but never even got to a third of build out, and they're just sitting waiting for people to come. And most people are sitting, and agents themselves are waiting for a buyer to say, hey, I want to build. And they're like, great, I've got a place for you to build. And instead you went to the source and said, hey, builder, I've got lots for you. Let's get these taken care of. I mean, that's from the tax base. If I was in Marshalltown and I was looking at the amount of revenue that's generated from this amount just within what you've done in those infill, but new development, like that's huge for your schools, for your community. And we'll get into that in a minute, but it's so interesting to see that approach that eventually led to somebody else saying, wait, if there's all these new constructions in Marshalltown, maybe we need to look at putting a development in. And somebody that's not even from the area, from
he's been to Marshalltown twice.
Wild.
So,
Well, and I think that, when you think about new agents that want to really experience new construction, you just had such a one-up on anybody. I mean, if I had done the cold calling, like I don't really have a construction background. Right. Like I can sell and I can market your property really, really well, but the way that you could connect with them just because of your construction background was so. I've always given him kudos too. He was the one who really got the new construction going.
And I think some of the success that we were able to have as far as sales in new construction is I was able to find a builder that would give me basically all the tools as far as pricing, kind of all the plans, all the layout, to where I could make all those changes. I could get them pricing really quick, and then we would stick to that pricing. So really just learning their system and learning what worked and being able to basically communicate that to buyers quickly made it really easy for buyers to say yes and get excited about a purchase agreement.
Now, do you tend to work with just one builder, or do you have kind of a portfolio of builders?
So I was working with primarily one, still working with the one, but I would say now I'm working with probably 5.
Wow. In Marshalltown or in surrounding areas?
No, just Marshalltown. Yeah. And it really has become just trying to figure out what the buyer need is, and then being able to hook up the buyer with that builder that I feel like we could best accomplish what they're wanting. So some of that's price, some of that's fit and finish, all that. So then picking that builder that's the best fit for that, and then working directly with the builder of how that's going to work.
And what's ratio look like of custom to spec right now? Are you still dealing with both equally, or are you seeing one?
Last year was more custom.
It was more custom.
It was. Okay. I don't know. So 2024, I've got only 2 customs going right now, getting ready to start one in probably March. And then we still have 3 specs in that neighborhood that we need to get sold for this other builder. 4. Well, we just start. Yeah, for one builder we have 3, and then we have one new builder that just came in that's doing a custom right now and did a spec at the same time. Well. And that one's going to be interesting because it's going to be our largest. It's 1,800 square feet, walkout basement, big 3-car garage. So it's pushing the price point. Yeah. To see if that'll
for
work.
For a spec, right?
For a spec. Absolutely. Like we're probably upper 4. We're like 479. Yep. So that's a lot for a spec.
Yes, it is. So. I think it's also interesting, just to rewind briefly, is that during COVID, during the pandemic, when prices were absurd for new construction and lumber and sourcing, that you had a developer that was kind of forward thinking and saying, hey, as we come out of this, there's going to be a need for housing. And so that you had a developer that was willing to develop at a time when everybody else is like, what's going on in the world is huge, and obviously benefited you guys. So do you work with the builders directly?
I do.
And you get the customs and specs going. Then is Kristen kind of the one that handles the listing and the marketing and the sales of that, or how do you partner there? Because I think it's also unique.
So we typically, we decided for our team that we were only going to brand one listing agent, one person, which that's Kristen.
Got it.
But really, as far as Kristen handles the closing and she handles all the communication as far as that goes, but as far as between builder and buyer, and even pretty much handle all that for the most part.
You usually build the relationship with the buyer. A lot of times I have the relationship too, but you work on that. You keep things going. I do all the paperwork and all the
and I do all the on-site
marketing.
Meetings. You know, so we'll do we do several different walkthroughs, and then one key thing that I think is to make sure everybody has the right system, which I think is very, very key for the builder, for the buyer, and for the buyer's agent, is making sure change orders get done and done correctly to make sure that everybody's on the same page of what's costing what. So I'm pretty strict on making sure no nothing happens until all change orders and dollars are fit. So it's, so I'm pretty particular of
page.
Making sure builder and buyer aren't just on site together. So making sure you're on all those meetings so that way you can document everything to make sure once you get to the closing table, there's no surprises as far as dollars. Because I think that's some of the biggest horror stories that people have in the building world, that they get blindsided by a cost that they didn't know was going to happen. So having that system in place has been, I think, pretty key.
And I would think back through all of the sales of all those new builds, you were the buyer's agent on like 99% of them, like maybe one or two.
Or you'd have somebody else coming in from different.
So that may also made things.
Well, I think this is why probably
special.
This partnership that you have is working so well, because if you were working just with the builder, and then Kristen was trying to represent the builder as the seller, but then also trying to represent buyers, that's not going to allow her to work with all the existing residential that's already in Marshalltown. So I think this is a very unique approach to partner and say, hey, like, new development, new construction, spec, and custom is going to have to be your specialty, because if I focus on that, I'm taking my time away from everything else that's out there.
Well, and like Kristen and I talk about it a lot, that if you were a single agent and you were trying to do development, it takes up so much of your time and energy.
That's a full-time job in itself.
You would lose so many opportunities on the other side. So that's exactly right. There's times that I do 6 months worth of work and nothing happens.
Yep.
And as a single agent, that would be really, really tough to do. You'd be
what diversifies really well.
And development is not just meeting with the customer, and writing contracts. Development is meeting with the city and meeting with the county and meeting with contractors. And, there's a lot more to it.
I think that's what's caught some agents off guard the first time they do kind of move into that realm of development and new construction, that the builder isn't out there or the developer isn't out there doing all of this. They're leaning onto that agent of, hey, like you need to figure out with City Hall what this is going to take. Like,
who's
you're
my
the
contact?
Boots, you're the boots on the ground, especially your guy. If I'm in Omaha, I'm not driving up to Marshalltown to meet with local city officials. Like, hey, Kurt, this is where you earn your keep. And that, I think, has caught agents off guard. Like, man, I'm doing a lot of stuff that doesn't seem like real estate. And no, it's much more regulation and government policy, but that's what you have to do in order to make it successful.
Yeah, and then you learn kind of the ins and outs of your local government, of what you think is going to work. So that way, when you're talking to your developer, you're setting their expectations of like, hey, I think we can get this to go, so you're not wasting a ton of time. Or with a builder, be like, yeah, this is going to work or it's not, and be based on the past experiences. So, and which we did have to kind of pause a little bit in Marshalltown, just because we did change city governments. We had our planning and zoning person that changed. We had a city administrator that changed. So our phase 2 isn't moved as quick as we wanted to because of that. And
when
it
you
just
have to
is like timing.
The relationships there. And we tell people that all the time, and they're, it kind of catches them off guard. It's why, and Kristen and I will kind of talk about this in a little bit, but why it's so important to be involved at the legislative and government level in real estate, because those relationships do matter. Yes. And being able to, number one, tell your builder developer, hey, here's what's not going to work and what is, but also to lean into that relationship and say, hey, city official, I need your help a little bit on this one. Like, we either need to speed this up, or I need you to help me figure out, is there a way that we can get this changed or rezoned or reclassified? And building that relationship versus coming in and trying to bully. We know what's going to work better. And it's creating a relationship where they see that you're not trying to just use them for it, that you value what they're doing for the city, because you also want to create housing opportunities for a city. Yeah. Because you said 10 years ago, you didn't have enough houses to attract new families and new population to Marshalltown. But I'm assuming that's changed, and now you have an inventory, or are you still struggling with inventory?
So we're still struggling with inventory, and we're struggling with variety of inventory. So I tell people all the time, and buyers and sellers and developers and everybody, even the employers of the community, is like, we don't need 100 units of any one thing. We need 10 or 12 of about 4 different types of housing. Yep. So it's still just trying to come up with that variety, because pretty much as stuff gets developed, it's been selling. Yeah. So we're still operating at pretty much a no inventory as far as new construction goes.
Yeah. When we hear that in almost all of our markets, where we're like, man, like, people are still developing and they're still putting in 0 lots and condos and single family, and our agents in Iowa City are like, yeah, and they're selling. Yeah. Right. So we see that in our agents in Cedar Falls, like, yep, those things are selling quickly. So it's, that's the thing, is we know across the entire state that there is demand, and it's tough to keep up with it. But we've also seen pockets where they're like, yeah, we overbuilt. We've got some of our metro areas where our agents have said, we're sitting on a lot of new construction right now that isn't moving. So positive to hear that it's moving and that there's still demand there. Yeah. you guys have this has kind of been the theme of what we've been rolling into, but it's this community development and betterment piece, because I think that's very important, near to dear to your hearts, because you've been in Marshalltown for 45 years. Talk about a little bit how you have used real estate to better your community, and then how bettering your community has obviously benefited your real estate careers, because I know you guys are very involved in Marshalltown.
I'd say, when you're a realtor, you have a really good vehicle. People see your face, they know your phone number, you're around. And so it feels natural when you get involved in something, because a lot of people already know who you are.
Yeah.
And so you get asked to do a lot of things because, obviously realtors make really great volunteers. But so we get asked to do a lot of things, but I think it's as we've been able to find what we're passionate about and, what really makes us tick. And, we chose to stay in Marshalltown. We didn't have to stay in Marshalltown. We chose to stay there. And if we're going to live there, we want it to, we want to have the best version of our city that we can. And so, taking steps to make things better, it was important to us.
Right.
We love big cities, and we don't live in a big city, but we want big city things where we live. And so that's always been a goal for us, is how do we get more things that excite us here, because things that excite us, we know excite others.
So tell us about that a little bit. Like, what are those things that have excited you, and you're like, hey, we're going to try to figure out a way, maybe at scale, but we want to bring something like this to Marshalltown, or we want to help bring this to Marshalltown?
I'm probably most top of mind would be for, we love sports. We're big sports people.
Yeah.
We're big Cyclone fans, and I know you hate that,
unfortunate,
but
we still like you guys.
We're big. I would say we are basketball people. We love basketball. So spent a lot of time coaching and being in the gym with our boys. And we had the opportunity. Marshalltown has we got a great school system. We've got beautiful facilities, and in 2019, I think we renovated the Roundhouse.
Oh, I think it
2017, 2018, I can't remember. So the Roundhouse, hands
down,
which is our sports gym.
Yeah. Yep.
You will hear anybody across the state will say you won't find a better facility now that it's been renovated, and a beautiful facility. I think it seats over 3,000 people. It's amazing. The environment that you can have in that space is pretty cool. And we'd go in there as we were watching our kids, play 7th, 8th grade basketball, getting excited to get to the Roundhouse, and we'd be like, there's like 200 people in the gym, and we'd get there and nothing was exciting. We weren't winning. So, like if you aren't winning, it's hard to get people to come out and support things. And so, we sat through a lot of Hilton games, and we were over watching the Cyclones. And there was a time the Cyclones weren't really winning a lot either. But when you left the Cyclone game, you felt like they won, because the experience you had there was so good.
There's
energy and the experience and the excitement that you watched on the kids' faces was awesome. And so, I started dreaming a bit and pitching this with another mom that we need to change the culture in the Roundhouse, so that no matter if we have a good team or what, that everybody wants to make sure they come and experience what's going on in the Roundhouse. And so in 2020, right after COVID, we basically dreamed it COVID. And then we went to some coaches and administrators and said, hey, we have this idea. We don't need any money from you. We don't need any of your time. We just want you to allow us as a couple moms and a few dads to make the Roundhouse rock. And we wanted to call it Ruckus in the Roundhouse. And we did that. And so we created halftime games, and we created giveaways, and we wanted to make the environment just super cool. We started marketing it on social media. We went to a lot of local businesses and explained to them what we wanted to do. We asked them if they'd give us a small donation, and some of them, writing checks for $1,000 and saying, yes, I want my little kids to experience something greater. And it went from 0 to 100 overnight, and we got a lot of followers, and things went great. It was really fun, and the Roundhouse filled up, and people couldn't wait to be there, and it was fun.
The only problem was we didn't have any TV timeouts.
We had no TV.
So we needed more time.
I did.
Because as Kristen does it, she planned for way more than what
Than
we
you
had
fit
time
into
for.
it.
Yeah, and I mean, people would see me, and they were like, when do you sleep? I don't understand how you run through the gym. And I mean, I was wearing my running shoes. I'm not a runner, but I was running like a crazy person, and
it was a lot of fun.
It was so fun, and it was really fun because we had a student that was playing basketball, but we had younger kids that were watching, and the excitement was fun. And so we built that up over the last.
It's an incredible experience for not just the kids that are there, but really for community members that are looking at this and being like, man, like I remember a day when our school was like this, because that's everybody. Like, right? It always seems from a nostalgic standpoint that things were more exciting and better when you were a kid. But to provide that, and you had me. I mean, I hadn't known you long, and you're like, hey, you need to check out Ruckus on Facebook. And I'm like, all right, fine. I get on there. I'm like, this is college level stuff. But it's a party, right? Like it's a party for the community in a gym where you have high school athletes that feel like they are in front of a crowd of thousands. It's really
it started
cool.
to be fun because we would even start to see like the visitor section
start to have some
grow,
fun with it.
and we started to decide, hey, it's not just for the Bobcats. Let's incorporate some of the other students from the other side in, and it just became really fun, and the crowd grew big. I mean, it did. It was fun. We were never like awesome. The teams won some.
They were over 500 usually.
Yeah,
every
so
time.
It was
so
fun.
It helped. Yeah.
It was helped, and so we kind of built that up. Been trying for the last few years to get some other. Last year especially, get some other moms involved because your time shifts to the things you get involved with.
Yeah, I say a little succession planning is always good.
And so we kind of worked through that, and I got a great mom that has kids that are coming up and in the system over the next few years, and she's kind of taken it and run with it. Your social media platform's already built up. You just got to kind of do it. A little bit of a shift just because as the crowds grew, the other people that the other organizations, like in the schools, really were like, wow, this is cool. Like, let's have our dance team perform a lot, and let's have the flag squad. Everybody wanted to use our halftime time, and the conferences have rules on how long halftime gets to be, and you can't. So we've had to shift a bit on how Ruckus looks, and so I would say it's not probably quite as exciting as it was. I haven't been to a game yet this year just because we've been traveling and things, but they're still trying and incorporating some other things for students there, and so it was a fun start.
Good.
So being involved, trying to make positive change.
Yeah,
I think is really
and
important.
obviously a pretty devastating tornado. What year did the tornado
2018.
hit? 18. It hit not far from where your office and your home now is in Marshalltown. You obviously were vital in kind of bringing back downtown Main Street to Marshalltown after the devastation. How did you become a part of that, and what does that look like? I know the Iowa Association of Realtors has showcased what you guys did, has interviewed you for that, but tell us a little bit about it, because I think it's important for our agents to know what you did to make sure that Main Street was getting the attention, not just housing developments on the outskirts of town.
I think I felt compelled.
Maybe we should say we were living very comfortably in a nice home with a big yard, and I planned to see my grandkids come home to that place, and like that was my dream house. I love it. I'm glad the family that has it now can thoroughly enjoy it, but that was my dream house. And then Kurt says,
I just felt like our downtown, so the EF4 tornado went right down our main street, knocked down probably at least 15 buildings. So we had 15 vacant lots. Our courthouse lost the top of the courthouse and got flooded and was vacant up until just last year. So 6 years of not being in there. So the downtown was hit pretty hard, and we're developers, or we're in the business of selling people their homes and their dreams. And we are still trying to recruit other builders, other developers, other investors to come into our downtown and help us rebuild back Marshalltown.
Yeah.
So I pitched an idea to Kristen, like, hey, we have a real estate company on the south side of town where it's really comfortable. And honestly, if you were in our town in 2018 and drove through right after the tornado, the south side of town, you didn't even know anything ever happened. So you were just kind of out there all by yourself. And it's like, well, there was a whole different world where the tornado hit. Yeah. So it's like, we can either stay down on the south side where it's really comfortable, or we could buy a building downtown and move our family there and put our real estate office on Main Street and help with the recovery. And my motivation was, unless you do it yourself, how do you ask somebody else to do it? So I was like, I want to go in and learn what it takes to redo a building and move a business down there and kind of learn the ins and outs of our local government.
Very different than single family new construction.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just kind of learn the grant system and the code upgrade stuff, and become somewhat of an advisor or an expert. So that way when I'm talking to other people that want to do it, I can say, hey, I've done this. You can too. So we eventually sold our house. We bought this building. We moved our family there first because the main level was rented by a church. So we started the plan and envisioning of what we wanted our real estate company to look like there.
In the same year that we started Ruckus in the Roundhouse. Like that was all at the same time.
Why not do everything,
everything
all at once?
Yeah. Everything at once.
So we started the plans with that. And then what year did we start construction?
We started construction of
22.
22.
So 22. So December 1st of 22, we gutted the main level of our building and started the reconstruction of what then was 5-Star Real Estate Group, and moving 5-Star there. So, and it took basically not quite a year. Yeah.
10 months.
10 months. That's right. We moved in October. We started in December and we moved 5-Star in there October 1st of 23.
Right.
So,
yeah. And again, for those of our agents that haven't seen pictures yet, I mean, it's phenomenal space, but also community minded because you created co-work space so that other people that don't need an entire building, don't need an entire office, but want a individual office space or drop space has that opportunity. Yeah. What does that look like? How did you put that together? Because I think it's very unique.
Well, I mean,
so again, it came from the tornado.
Yeah.
So we had our chamber did a downtown tour. And beings were chamber members, were like, well, let's go. And they invited the company. It was a Small Nation out of Belle Fountain, Ohio. And Jason and his staff, Jason Duff and his staff came over and they did this whole tour. And our building was one of the spaces that we met in prior to our construction. And Jason had started a co-working facility in Belle Fountain. And that's a 15,000 population town. Ours is 30.
I was wondering what the size of the community was.
So that got my brain thinking like, wow, co-working, and he was revitalizing his whole downtown. They got hit by an ice storm that knocked out a bunch of their town and buildings and stuff. So then he was buying them up and rebuilding them and getting them back. So their situation was very similar to Marshalltown. Ours was a tornado. Theirs was an ice storm. So that got my wheels turning. And then after that meeting, I pitched it to Kristen. I was like, hey, what do you think? Our real estate office doesn't need 4,000 square feet. What do you think about trying to co-work with other
unique,
people? Yeah. And I said, what better way to get referrals and build relationships with other professionals that are in town that aren't here necessarily to buy real estate, but they're here just to work, and then we build those relationships. So we started to then retool our office design to what would it look like if we also did co-working. Yeah. So then we made a trip out to Belle Fountain and toured their facilities and met with Jason and his team, and then said, hey, I think this is something we want to do. So then we started meeting with the city and trying to figure out, how this would look and work as two businesses in one, as far as signage goes and all that stuff. And then we hired them as basically a consultant as we did our build out and get our platforms stuff set up. And we just figured, why not bring something else new to the community? Yeah. We didn't really have a lot of spaces that for small meeting spaces or just small offices for entrepreneurs. Yeah. So just trying to create something different, I guess.
I will say, when you just mentioned it, but 30,000 in Marshalltown, I remember when Kristen was telling me about everything that Marshalltown had a few years ago, and I hadn't been to Marshalltown since I was a really young kid. I'm like, how does Marshalltown have all this stuff with a population of like 12,000? And so I get online, I'm like, oh, you have 30,000 people. It's exceptionally bigger than I imagined, but it still feels like a much smaller community, right. And that's been the fun part of just learning from you guys, the different community events, the Ruckus Ruckus and Roundhouse, but you also have your Christmas stroll that literally feels like you're in a Hallmark movie, and it's just such small town atmosphere in a town of 30,000 people. Right. And I think that makes it makes Marshalltown different, I think, than some of the larger communities that we have in Iowa, which is fun. But so let's roll into this, because you kind of mentioned when you started construction in this in 2022, which ironically is also when I first met Kristen. Yeah. And we were involved in Leadership Institute at IAR together.
And I was at Belle Fountain for our first.
You were, for the very first.
Right.
You logged into a Zoom. Yeah, that's right. I forgot all about
so
that.
We were sitting at this super cool bar restaurant outside. And Kurt was saying, I don't know why you have to do that. Like, why would you have to do a Zoom right now? I'm like, well, I committed to this, so I'm doing it.
And that I would say that is kind of
that was your virtual cocktail.
It was a virtual cocktail meeting. It's kind of a motto for Kristen. If she's going to commit something, she's going to do it, and she's going to go all in. But so let's talk about that a little bit. We talked about you getting licensed in 2020. We've gotten all the way through Kurt joining in 13. You guys owning the brokerage. You moving into development, new construction. We've now gotten to the point where you have your office in downtown Marshalltown. What got you to where you are today with C21? Because I think that's also, for some people, hard to understand. If, wait a minute, you owned your own business, you were your own brokerage, and now you're here. Yeah. What's the story there? Because I think it's important for people to understand.
Yeah, I would say, I had already taken kind of, I felt it was important to be involved in our local Realtor Association, which when I got involved originally, so that would have been the Marshalltown Board of Realtors, which essentially merged into become the Mid-Iowa Regional Board of Realtors in 2011. And I stayed really active in that all the way through my career at a local level. And it wasn't until 2022 when I found out they kind of begged me, like, we need a president
Recycling
again.
you as a president, right? 'Cause what was your first year as president?
2010.
2010.
So I'd been a president, and, I had that not on my radar, but they came to me and they're like, we really need somebody to do this. Can you please just step in and be the president? And I was like, sure, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. I can be the president again. And so, but then I got an email that was like, oh, you're the president, and you've been invited to participate in Leadership Institute, and this is what it is. And professionally, I was a little bit stagnant on like involvement at just other things that I wanted to stretch myself. And, there'd been some shifts in our office, and I was just like, I need a little bit of a challenge. And so I was like, I'm going to just say, yes, I'm going to go to Leadership Institute. And I remember texting our AE and saying, says she'll pay for this. And she's like, yeah, whatever, sure, we'll do it. Nobody's wanted to do it, but
nobody's ever gone, right?
So I told Kurt I was going to do it, and he was like, what are you going to do, and how long is it going to take, and how many meetings are there to be? I mean, that's just what he does. And such a good choice, because I got to meet you. I got to meet a lot of other presidents across the state and really realize like what we're doing on a local level matters. But if you take what you're doing locally and have an opportunity to jump in with both feet, you can make a difference at state level too and really understand. So I took the challenge there. I felt like things went well. I said, I want to be on a committee. Let's really jump into to Iowa Realtors, because I'm passionate about it. Had no idea I was passionate about the legislative side to things and government policy, and I am
right.
Learning that really matters.
Really
matters.
And
you start to. I think there's a difference, and you just hit the nail on the head. There's politics, which sometimes people are really turned off by, but there is government policy and legislation and regulation, which is key to real estate. And all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I am interested in this stuff. I don't like the politics and the political side. I like this side of it, because this is how we make change that betters our communities, betters home ownership, betters the real estate industry. So you're right on.
I sat through, 5 training sessions of Leadership Institute, and was like, I think every time I'd be like, I'm just blown away. How did I not know this? Or what did I've been selling real estate for 22 years, and there were so many like moments of just like moments. And then I specifically remember we had a whole training on RPAC and, talking about the importance of RPAC. And you went into this whole spiel about like, you kind of skipped over RPAC because you just assumed we all like were really big into it. And then you started talking about major investors and President's Circle and things. And I was like, well, I feel terrible. How have I been in this so long and I have not felt
I did not guilt trip you into this.
You didn't guilt trip me, but I remember you and I specifically having a really long conversation, and I was probably almost in tears, and I was like, I feel so bad that I didn't put this as a priority. And I remember coming home to Kurt, and he was like, well, if you think it's important, then I think it's important. And so then we just decided, we are committed to realtors having the opportunity to have the career that we've been able to have.
Right.
And I think I, got the opportunity. I remember a call where Greta from IAR, she calls me and she's like, we really want you to speak about how RPAC's important to you. And I'm going, does she look to see how much I've ever committed to RPAC over the past 22 years? But then really I found a passion in that. And so, just taking a chance to get involved really has changed the trajectory of what I feel I can do for our industry. And you said to me, after knowing you maybe like 36 hours, I remember you specifically being like, wow, I think we're going to work together someday. Yeah. And I was like, well, you're a nice little guy, but I think we might hang out with Iowa Realtors, but we're probably never going to work together. And then you just kind of always nudged me a little bit about C21. And there had been numerous times over the past 5 years that, everybody was always calling us.
Oh, yeah. You're getting recruited like crazy.
We were getting recruited like crazy. And Kurt got passionate a few times and thought, hey, maybe this is the right thing. And I was always, no. We are 5-star. We are red and blue, and we are Bobcats, and that is our colors, and we will never change, ever. And then I think it just became more evident as we started to really look into where is our industry going? Where is our community going? Where are these big brokerages at that are coming from and not having anybody locally to really take care of Marshalltown? And so we were just like, we have to find the right brokerage that fits our mission, our model. We had to find somebody that had the same integrity and ethical value that we had. And when we started looking at everything that Century 21 could offer us, it was like we were looking in the mirror is just black and gold. You know, it's just changed, and the name changed. And so we really,
obviously a bigger, better version of what we had. I mean, you guys were already established and had everything that we always wanted.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about, right? Like you guys were successful where you were, but Kristen said, like, you hit capacity.
Yeah.
I can either keep doing this amount of production, but I can't train new agents, because if I start training new agents, I'm going to have to back off on my production. Right. And yes, I would love to do more marketing, but I don't have the time and the capacity to do all that. And so that was the conversation we had. Is this came down to a quality of life thing. I'm like, hey, I know how much production you guys are doing, and I know, and that was the fun part is, you know, we through the fall of 22 got to know each other, and then in February of 23, you're like, hey, I'm bringing Kurt. And I'm like, thank goodness, like it's about time I get to meet this guy. And so he shows up and has that same passion of, hey, we do want to grow. Like we can't grow where we're at because of how hard it is to figure out, do I back off on my production? Do I back off on agent training and education? And that's where, like I said, every time I talk to him, like, I think this is going to be a good fit for you guys. And I mean, it took a little while.
It took a little while.
Like 14, 15, 16 months, but for good reason, right? Yeah. Like if you would have jumped ship right away, and the minute I mentioned this, you're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do this. I'm like, whoa, like you should be asking the hard questions first. Yeah. But again, it worked out exactly like it needed to, because it's given you the chance first to figure out who we were and to figure out, like, what was it about C21 that made us exceptional. But you also got to meet some of the people, and that always makes a difference when you're like, wow, like I like that person. Oh, there was C21, and I really like this person. Holy cow, they're also a C21. And it's what we pride ourselves on is that we are a group of really good people that are also really, really good real estate agents. And that's why I'm pretty proud of C21 Signature Real Estate, is because we do care more about the people first, and we love good people.
And it shows, and that was the big thing of our takeaway when we started looking at it. It's like, all right, you know, you guys do what you say, and C21 is what they say. They will take the high road, and that's what we've always said is like the day you start chasing a dollar is the day that you've lost, I guess, track or your focus of why you're doing this business. And I would say after, what did you say, we're how many months into this now?
You are at this point in time about 10 months in. Not even. You're about 9 months in right now.
Yeah, and I totally believe that. Like I think through and through C21 is that.
Yeah.
So which is awesome.
Well, that was the fun part when I was having a conversation with you guys. It was friends first, because I'd gotten to know you well, and I'm like, listen, like I wouldn't be telling you this is the best decision if I didn't 100% in my soul believe this is the best decision, because there's no benefit to me to honestly promise you things and then have us not perform. Right. And so I knew, given the, you know, our marketing department, our onboarding department, our training, they're like, guys, this is going to be everything I said it's going to be. And that's fun. We showed up and put new signs in yards in Marshalltown in the middle of a rainstorm and laughed while we did it. You know, but that was the cool part, was we knew bringing you guys on was special to us, because we would be able to provide you guys something that allows that growth. It's fun. I'm going to brag on Kristen for a minute, because after all of this, and as you know, you're becoming part of C21, mind you, you didn't get onto your first committee at IAR until 2023.
Right.
And so you haven't been involved at the state level long. No. And, you know, so that's beginning of 23, and we are not even 18 months later, and you know, unbeknownst to you, because I was on the committee, you weren't, you're chosen as the Iowa Realtors Realtor of the Year, which is pretty exceptional when you've only been involved a year and a half, and people are looking at you and saying, hey, like, this is someone we need to recognize because of their commitment to their community, because of how they represent the real estate industry, and then how they really represent who we are as Iowa Realtors. And so that was obviously special to our company, which, you know, several of the people that were up in that balcony knew that night, and Kurt was able to during the inaugural, which was pretty stinking cool for me, that as I'm getting installed for my year as president, I know what's going to happen right before that. So, you know, I obviously got a little emotional because I was so proud that you guys were a part of us, but knowing that, you know, in a short amount of time that night, you know, Kurt wasn't just going to be there, but your whole family was going to be there to recognize you as the Realtor of the Year. But just talk a little bit about that. And again, it's one of those things where if we would have asked you a year and a half ago, would you be the Realtor of the Year? You'd be like, well, no, I haven't been involved long enough. But this is where I get to brag on you. But we've had this conversation of why it played out the way that it did.
Yeah, I was shocked first off. And I think I've learned about everything that someone's going to surprise me with before it happens. It's hard for people to pull a fast one on me. So that was really super cool, getting my family all there. But I didn't even know the Realtor of the Year award existed because I had not been to an inaugural before the previous year. And so I remember seeing Jen Jansen receive that award and heard a little bit about it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. She's really cool. I hope I get to know her better because I don't even know her yet, hardly. And then her family was there. And I thought that was a really cool award. And honestly, never thought about it again after that. Yeah. So I thought about Jen a lot, but I didn't think about that award.
The actual award.
And the whirlwind of deciding to really go all in and being elected to becoming, second vice president.
Which means you're a 2028
president. Yeah. I was just super excited really about you and your inaugural and thinking that, wow, this leadership path is really awesome. And what a difference I can try to make for our, for our company and for our state. That was really important to me. And then I honestly wasn't paying attention because I was just sitting there and my phone had beeped and I was looking at an email and Jen started talking and then I was like, I think she's talking about me. I looked over to Kurt and he had like a tear running on his face and she was saying these great things about me and our town and things like that. And I was shocked, so humbled, so honored. There's a lot of other people that should have received that instead of me, but I'm proud. Yeah, super proud. Yeah, and it's been really fun for me, I'm kind of like, I never am a bragger. So like if you went back and like tried to find ads about who was the top selling agent in Marshalltown for the last, I wasn't very good about saying tooting our horn. I wasn't very good about that, but it's been fun for how many people mailed me articles and, our town wrote our newspaper did an awesome piece.
Oh, that's cool.
The older people that walk in still. Like last week, somebody brought me the article still, and so it's just,
it's special.
That was fun. Yeah. That was really fun.
Well, it was fun for us as C21, obviously, because it is for a humble agent, like I'm not going to be the one to like post all over the place that I was Realtor of the Year. So fun for us as C21 to get to brag it up and be like, hey guys, like our Realtor of the Year is right here with C21 Signature Real Estate, and we're stinking proud of her.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
It was good. No, it was a wonderful night, and like you said,
it was a great night.
Your leadership journey is just getting started, and the best part is Kurt gets to, in the same way that he's been a part of your real estate career and built his, he's now getting to experience this firsthand. Yeah. And I can tell you, my wife will say the same thing. It's good for business, and people are like, man, is this pulling away time from your real estate profession? And I'm shaking my head and saying, the connections I'm making and the networking we do is going to benefit me. Like, not only am I going to become more efficient because my time is pulled in different directions, but I'm making connections and building relationships all over the state, that really all over the country, that are going to benefit me as I move through this journey. So it's fun to watch how this is going to be another avenue for you to build business.
Yeah, I agree.
You've mentioned them several times, but I want to kind of roll into that. Your kids, tell us a little bit about them. I want to make sure that we bring that up, because you talked about how you got into real estate with the first one, and then in 2010, obviously Avery. But give us a rundown of the three.
So Drake's our oldest, and he's 20 years old. He's going to turn 21 tomorrow, which is hard to believe that we're going to have a 21-year-old kid. So he's going to University of Dubuque. He'll graduate this year with his 4-year degree, and then he is going to go on and become an optometrist. So he's going to go to optometry school next year, August.
And that is officially in or unofficially in?
It's probably 90.
So he's going to go to optometry school.
Yeah.
I think he'll end up in Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana. If he doesn't end up there, he'll end up in St. Louis.
Got it.
So one of the two, but I would say he's 99% sure he's going to go to Indiana.
Which is not a bad drive.
That's
doable.
Not a bad drive. We're excited about it. He has made it clear he will remain a Cyclone, even though he will attend a lot of Hoosier basketball games. So that's pretty cool. Then we got Eli, who is 17. He'll be 18 in March.
My children adore. They love Eli.
Eli is a lot of fun.
Yes.
Eli is Kurt. Basically a smaller, well, not even smaller, just a younger version of Kurt. Which, if you don't know our story, Kurt and I started dating really, really young. And so it's almost like I'm like Kurt's back. Kurt is back.
Scary for all of us.
Yeah, so like living with two of the same man is kind of fun. But no, he's going to graduate high school, and he's hasn't made a clear decision on his path yet for next year, but he's got some things in the works, and so we're excited to see where his future leads him, and we'll go from there.
And both boys are golfers.
Both
right?
boys are golfers.
Boys, like Mom. Like I think we kind of forgot to mention that at the beginning, but you had an opportunity at one point to maybe be a golfer.
I did have it. That's the wrong way to say it. I had an opportunity to golf at a higher level.
There we go.
Well,
you told me you kind of quit golfing for a while.
But I still had a good college experience and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Avery's 8th grade, and she loves volleyball, and she's pretty driven. She wants to be 16 so she can have a job. Like that's the constant thing we hear is I want to work, and she's a lot of fun. She's an old soul. I always say she's an old soul, but they're really fun. We have a really good family nucleus. We like to hang out together, which I think is really, really important. And we've, that's been important to us, like our whole marriage. So make sure that we keep the family first.
It's the best part of it. That's why I love real estate is that flexibility to say, hey, we're gonna do something special together. Which, again, your passions, and I know we've talked traveling. You got a place down in the Ozarks. What are your passions outside of real estate? And you can talk a little bit about traveling because I know that is something you guys do regularly and make time for yourselves.
Yeah, we love to travel. We love to travel with our kids, but we also love to travel as adults and get away and just kind of be us. I like to hunt and fish. I do that with Eli as well, and we play golf quite a bit when we can. So that's kind of my passion, I guess, or my hobbies.
Yeah, I mean, I really love traveling. I try to do it as much as possible. And I love to go with the kids. Like Kurt said, we've made some really great memories, and it's fun. They will probably all really love to travel too when they get older. So that's great. I really do enjoy the game of golf. I don't play it often. I do have a new set of golf clubs that I got last year that have been played once. And they're really nice clubs. So
if Vic is listening, Vic, here we go.
I know. She invited me to play golf this year, but I couldn't do it. So I don't have a ton of other hobbies besides golfing. I do love to go to the lake. We love to spend time in the Ozarks. I love boating. We've been boaters since, I don't know, 5 years into marriage, maybe?
Yeah, right away. Pretty much right away.
Yeah, we've had boats all of our married life, and so we love being on the water. And
I always say I'm a better boat driver than I'm a golfer. So.
He is a really good boat driver.
You know what? Somebody has to drive the boat, and somebody has to crush the drive.
We know which lane to stay in, and my job is not behind the wheel of the boat, ever.
Perfect. So before we wrap up, I think it's interesting, and I want to have a very brief conversation on it. But you do travel regularly, and I'm not saying just traveling to go down to the Ozarks. You guys make sure you take time to get away from your business, and whether that's a European cruise or a Caribbean cruise, or you're going out to California to wine country, how do you make that work with the amount of production and business you're doing? What systems do you have? How have you built it up that you can do that? Because I think that's always a minor roadblock, and maybe more of a mental roadblock than an actual one for agents is, I can't leave for 2 weeks and go on a cruise because there's no way that my business will take care of itself. What have you done to allow for that besides just longevity?
I would say we're good planners. So early on, we had to start setting time for travel because if just on a whim, it never works because you'd have a closing or you'd have something else that was already planned. So we try to schedule a year or maybe even 2 years out of some of these travel events. So as you're working through your daily schedule, you can know those trips are coming up so that way you don't plan your closing all while you're gone. And then having the good systems in place at the office with other agents that can help cover your time.
Yeah. I mean, we've always made sure that if there's an emergency, there was somebody that could handle something. I've never been good about just being like, I'm gone. No one will contact me. So that's never happened. But I think that the business is really mobile. And so wherever you are, the hardest place we've ever traveled to was when we were in Europe, and, we're 8-hour time frame time zone difference. Then there's like 2 hours a day that actually work to communicate. So that was a little bit difficult, but I think like Kurt said, he said it really well. Is we just plan it out. And then I always set the expectation with whoever I'm working with at that time. You know, you're not gonna be able to reach me on a whim at this moment, but if you text me, I'll get back to you, or email me. Yeah. So I know there's a lot of people that want to be able to take vacation and just shut it off, and they want to be able to take 2 weeks off. That's not my personality. Right. I would rather just handle it. Like there's no reason I'm sitting in a beach lounge chair that I can't email, or I can't present an offer. I can't do whatever. Yeah. And so it's just worked.
Yeah. And I think setting the expectation, like you said, with the buyers of saying, hey, I'm going to be gone. You know, this particular person's going to be covering me. Still contact me. I will line it up. Yeah. And that way they still feel you're connected and involved. And they're not just going to be forgotten.
And making sure whoever is going to show for you or do things for you feels that it's worth their time and they're compensated well. And that's absolutely that's always been really, really important to us. So
I think what you said, I think makes a huge difference there, in that it shows that you're doing what you love, because you're not trying to get away from the work by going on a cruise. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to still do the work while I'm here, because it's technically not work. It's what I do and I love it. And so I'm still going to take care of you, because you know, ignoring you and cutting you off isn't where I'm going to get my joy here. I still want to take care of you, because that's actually what I enjoy doing, regardless of where I am, if I'm in Europe or California, or if I'm in Marshalltown.
I mean, it's great. Who doesn't want to check an email on your, have your laptop out in the morning and overlooking the sea? Yeah. Like it's great. It's just great.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. You guys, I want to thank you so much for being here. So it was fun for me. And when I said to Dylan, like, hey, I kind of want to, which for the longest time, Dylan would have to ask, like, remind me, what are their names? Because we called you for the whole onboarding experience. You were the Polleys. And so we would be in leadership meetings and we would say, okay, so for the Polleys, and I'd be meeting with Whitney, and then we'd loop Dylan in, like, hey, the Polleys. And he's like, can we use their first names? I'm like, we absolutely can start using their first names. So Kurt, Kristen, thank you guys both so much for spending some time here today. I know this won't be the last time you're in the studio, but again, it means a lot to me that I was able to chat with you guys today. You're both very special friends, and I'm excited to see where this goes.